Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Society of Bangor. Welcome to all of you here in the building and welcome to all of you here online. It is wonderful to be together on this beautiful morning. I'm Reverend Rebecca Liberty. I'm the sabbatical minister here while Reverend Drew Moeller is on sabbatical, and I am grateful for your welcome here as well. In this community, anyone is welcome, and I am grateful for that and hope you find that to be true as well. Another thing we're grateful for this morning is to be on unceded territory of the Wabanaki people. We are grateful for this place in which we gather to worship. This morning, the first Sunday of May, means we have a new theme in worship for the month of May. And the theme this month is creativity. And you may or may not connect that with some blank papers that you might have found in the pews if you are here in the building this morning. And at this moment, I would like to make sure that everyone has a piece of paper. We won't use them quite yet. Just trying to work up a little suspense here. But John has some extras. Like I don't know that I got around to every last pew, so you can hand them around and then just wave your arms if you need one. I'll give you a moment to do that. And feel free to wonder what these are for. You don't have to do anything with them yet, but you might notice, are you the kind of person that there's a blank piece of paper and all of a sudden you're anxious that you're going to have to do something with this, and oh my goodness, is she going to collect these? I'll just say, no, these will not be collected, but also I'm not going to tell you yet what we're doing with them, and just notice any excitement or frustration or whatever comes up in you to have a blank piece of paper and not know yet what it is for. So, everybody have a piece of paper? Okay. I think we're all set, and I think if you leave the extras there, they'll be on this first pew, so wherever John is putting them is where they'll be, so right up front. If you need another or you find someone near you without one, just feel free to come up and get a piece of paper. We don't want anybody to be left out. All right. Thank you all for that bit of logistics here as we begin. All right, and now I'm going to hand it over to Linda, who has some announcements for today.
Good morning. I have some really happy news today, so I'm glad I'm doing the announcements. On Friday last week, during the Downtown Bangor First Friday, about 20 musicians showed up and some volunteers from UUSB, and we turned the Pocket Park on Central Street into a celebration of UUSB. We gave away cookies, thanks to the bakers, sold raffle tickets, and connected with a lot of people. It was a great way to connect with the broader community and build stronger ties with each other. Thanks to Karen Childs for her creative imagination. Yeah. And her boundless energy in pulling this event together. And maybe starting a new UUSB tradition? Yesterday, Rissa tells me everything on the spring cleanup checklist got done. Yeah. Thanks, of course, to the volunteers who showed up for the cleaning. Ann Lee, Linda Kaler, Marshall Smith, Casey Falcon and family, Aaron Call and family, Bob Kelly, and Con Martin answered the call. Thanks also to the donor who... Bruce? Yay, Bruce. Sorry about that. And thanks to the donor who donated 5 raffle tickets to hand out to 5 families who showed up. Okay, today at 11:30, Lori will be conducting the Common Read downstairs in the community cafe, and she welcomes everyone to participate in talking about white supremacy and strategies for actively dismantling racism. She doesn't mind if you haven't read the book. So come on down at 11:30 after you've had your treats and coffee. Okay, here's the big one. We're in the home stretch with our raffle sales. We've sold 300 tickets so far and raised almost $6,000. We can pay the price. There are, as of last night, there were 450 tickets out there among you ready to be sold. And if we sell all of those 450, we'll raise almost $10,000, which means we'll end our fiscal year, Rosemary, where are you? In the black. If you take even more packets and sell more than the 450, just imagine what we can do with good works in the community. The drawing is in 2 weeks, so it's really important to target getting those packets in the next week, if at all possible. You can bring them to my house, you can give them to Lisa and Marshall, our wonderful rafflettes who are out at the raffle table. You can bring them here to the church during the week when Christine is here, or you can put them in the mailbox in the middle door. The best way, though, is to hand it to a person, especially before or after the service on Sunday. One last reminder about the raffle. I'm channeling Sue here. It can be used for any home improvement or home furnishings, and it can be used for anything related to travel. But that's it. A woman asked me Friday, plaintively, can I use it for my dog's surgery? I said, I'm sorry, no. But anyway, those are the 2 ways, the 2 general ways the raffle prize can be used. Okay, and that's it for the good news today.
Come with me and join
Glenn Rampy will be doing the chalice lighting for us this morning. And it's a call and response in your order of worship or on the screen. Your part is in bold type. It is said that ministers are here to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. I say we are all afflicted and we are all comfortable.
May our time together this morning be a comfort and consultation.
May we here find peace in times of tumult.
May we hear invite tumult into lives of peace.
May we here find calm in times of restlessness.
May we hear allow restlessness to evolve into action.
Let this be the place you consider what you've never considered.
Let this be the place you imagine for yourself something new and unthinkable.
May this hour bring dreams of new ways of being in the world.
Come, let us worship together.
Blessed be. Hymn. And now we'll sing hymn 330.
This is a time for all ages, so I invite children and children at heart to come and join me here on the carpet. And I'm going to make it so I can see the screen a little bit too. Good morning, everyone. And it's fun to see some of the children a little bit closer and kind of more part of the worshiping space here. But now I get to be even closer to you as we read this story together this morning. Anybody ever heard or seen, and I'm going to put this out to everyone because this book has been around for a while. Anybody know the book Harold and the Purple Crayon? Excellent. Well, it is a wonderful story of how what we can imagine helps create the world we live in. So, Harold and the Purple Crayon. And you can watch either the pictures on the screen or the pictures on the book. I'll try to read it at the same time. But we have a little intro here. So Harold and the Purple Crayon by Crockett Johnson. This book was published in 1955. One evening, after thinking it over some time, Harold decided to go for a walk in the moonlight. There wasn't any moon, and Harold needed a moon for a walk in the moonlight, and he needed something to walk on. He made a long, straight path so he wouldn't get lost, and he set off on his walk, taking his big purple crayon with him. But he didn't seem to be getting anywhere on the long, straight path. So he left the path for a shortcut across a field, and the moon went with him. The shortcut led right to where Harold thought a forest ought to be. He didn't want to get lost in the woods, so he made a very small forest with just one tree in it. Turned out to be an apple tree. The apples would be very tasty, Harold thought, when they got red. So he put a frightening dragon under the tree to guard the apples. It was a terribly frightening dragon. It even frightened Harold. He backed away, and his hand holding the purple crayon shook. Suddenly he realized what was happening, but by then Harold was over his head in an ocean. He came up thinking fast, and in no time he was climbing aboard a trim little boat. He quickly set sail, and the moon sailed along with him. After he had sailed long enough, Harold made land without much trouble. He stepped ashore on the beach, wondering where he was. The sandy beach reminded Harold of picnics, and the thought of picnics made him hungry. So he laid out a nice, simple picnic lunch. There was nothing but pie, but there were all 9 kinds of pie that Harold liked best. When Harold finished his picnic, there was quite a lot left. He hated to see so much delicious pie go to waste. So Harold left a very hungry moose and a deserving porcupine to finish it up. And off he went, looking for a hill to climb to see where he was. Harold knew that the higher up he went, the farther he could see, so he decided to make the hill into a mountain. If he went high enough, he thought, he could see the window of his bedroom. He was tired, and he felt he ought to be getting to bed. He hoped he could see his bedroom window from the top of the mountain. But as he looked down over the other side, he slipped, and there wasn't any other side of the mountain. He was falling in thin air. But luckily, he kept his wits and his purple crayon. He made a balloon, and he grabbed onto it. And he made a basket under the balloon big enough to stand in. He had a fine view from the balloon, but he couldn't see his window. He couldn't even see a house. So he made a house with windows, and he landed the balloon on the grass in the front yard. None of the windows was his window. He tried to think where his window ought to be. He made some more windows. He made a big building full of windows. He made lots of buildings full of windows. He made a whole city full of windows. None of the windows was his window. He couldn't think where it might be. He decided to ask a policeman. The policeman pointed the way Harold was going anyway, but Harold thanked him. And he walked along with the moon, wishing he was in his room and in bed. Then suddenly, Harold remembered. He remembered where his bedroom window was when there was a moon. It was always right around the moon. And then Harold made his bed. He got in it, and he drew up the covers. The purple crayon dropped on the floor, and Harold dropped off to sleep. So, yay for Harold, and yay for all of the ways in which your imagination can help create the world around you. And you know, sometimes kids have an easier time imagining than adults, and sometimes adults need a little bit of help. And so, everybody here should have a blank piece of paper. This is when you find out what it's for. You all will be going downstairs, and I'm sure that you have paper and all sorts of things down there. But this is where you get to help the grown-ups while you all are downstairs. So we're not gonna sing just yet, but I'm gonna ask for your help. Can you make sure that everybody here has access to some crayons? Because as Harold teaches us, crayons are really helpful for imagination. Thank you. So grab maybe one for each hand. And here, let's see, do you want to take a couple of these? And then you can come back and get more if you find more people who need crayons. And I so appreciate, yeah, you can walk, in fact, you can just walk around with us, sure, maybe a couple of you. And this would be a good chance. If you got here too late for paper, there's still paper left. All right. Sometimes you need other supplies for worship. Sure. Can you wave your hand if you need some paper? Okay.
I don't have my hearing aids.
Okay. All right. Anyone else for paper? Yeah, just give the cups of crayons. Just hand them all around. People can share. My guess is there are some people here who have not had to share a cup of crayons with another person in a very long time, and it's not a bad skill to be reminded of. Anyone else for paper? Okay. And if you're handing out crayons and you feel like everybody around you has some, then you can meet us back here. Yeah, so anybody who does not have crayons yet, or access to some next to you, can you wave at us? All right, if you're handing out crayons and you've run out of people to give them to, come gather here so we know when we're done. And maybe while they're coming back, I'll just say that there's really no specific instructions of what to do with these crayons and piece of paper. Harold certainly didn't have anyone telling him what he should draw or what it should mean. So I just invite you to use these crayons and your blank piece of paper to doodle during the rest of the service. And when all the kids have come back, then we will together send you off downstairs for your time together, your classes. Okay, are we ready to sing? All right, so kids are upstairs for their classes, and the rest of us will sing you on your way. Thank you so much for your help with the crayons and helping us get our imaginations going. And with gratitude for all the ways that we create community when joys and sorrows and imaginations are shared. Amen and blessed be.
And now is the time when we share of our resources in the offering. Thank you all. Our reading this morning is Blessed Are the Makers by Reverend Marcus Leifert. O you who are makers, makers of beauty, of paintings and pottery and sculpture, blessed is the making. You who make with hands and hearts and minds, who make out of breath and bones and blood human lives. Blessed are the makers. Blessed are those who make us laugh, who make jokes and faces and toys. Blessed are those who make messes, who make trouble and friends, and when needed, make up. Blessed are those who make do, who make it last, make it work, make beds and make time for others. Blessed are those who make love, who make out and make more and make mistakes. Blessed are those who make coffee and tea, who make conversation, who make meaning in the face of tragedy, who make merriment and awaken joy. Blessed are those who make peace, for they shall inherit the earth.
Why are there so many
Thank you. And as I begin, just another encouragement to doodle all the way through this sermon. Will not think you're not paying attention. Also, you are not forced to do that. So very open-ended here, but you have paper and crayons available. Do with them what you wish during this time. So a few years ago, I was invited to join a group of people studying this book, and I was intrigued by its title, From What Is to What If? Unleashing the Power of Imagination to Create the Future We Want. I was also intrigued by the description of the group. It was intentionally not called a book group, but it was called a community of practice, because it was going to ask us to do something about what we were reading and exploring together. The group was gathered by the BTS Center in Portland, an organization that is the successor to the Bangor Theological Seminary. Now, many of us who joined this community of practice were familiar with faith communities who were challenged in various ways in this time by the changes in how people belong to things. So the practice of imagining new futures, new ways to be community, new ways to resource such community, new ways to make meaning and work for justice together, that practice of imagination was highly relevant. The book, though, isn't about faith communities in particular. It first tells the stories of groups of neighbors coming together. They're doing things like closing off public streets for children to play outside together, where other outdoor space wasn't available. Rob Hopkins, the author, is based in the United Kingdom. They're imagining new ways to grow food locally, or new ways to get around without relying on fossil fuels. And these groups go a bit beyond just the imagination part. They don't just make up images to solve problems. They brought those images to life in action. But it started with imagination, which the educational reformer John Dewey described as the ability to look at things as if they could be otherwise. The ability to look at things as if they could be otherwise. That's what the community of practice asked us to do, to wonder about the way things are, what is, and look at it as if it could be otherwise. What if? For example, what if we might use our building in some different ways, or relate to our neighbors differently? At the time that I was in this community of practice, I was interim priest with St. John's Episcopal Church, just a block or two over from here. And we started imagining, for example, some new uses for the green space that adjoins the church building. So today, as we begin this month's theme of creativity, imagination seemed like a good place to begin. But imagination is not always where we begin when we face a challenge or a change. Often we begin by being afraid, or giving up, or trying harder. We double down on what has worked before. It is often easier to reject images of a different future, either from others or in ourselves. We label them too risky, or we write them off. That will never work. We'll never convince people to do that. Instead, we get even more serious about the problems as we are accustomed to seeing them. So many obstacles get in the way of imagination. But as one place to start, let's clear away a couple of those obstacles today. First, let's clear away the idea that imagination is unusual, or that you need special skills or training or the right personality to practice it. What Hopkins found, and when he started listening to groups that were imagining some new futures, was that imagination turned out not to be unusual at all. He talks a lot first about the decline of imagination in recent decades due to things like decreased downtime, less playtime for all ages, and the increased presence of screens in our daily lives. But imagination comes back, he said, when you give it space. He writes, imaginative play, creativity, inventiveness are all still there. There is a deep well of it in communities, in relationships, and in the human psyche, no matter how assiduously it has been tamped down. We just need to make space for it in the right way, and it will grow again spontaneously. Imagination is resilient. If we can put to one side the factors that are suppressing it, it will reemerge, blinking into the light, because it is our natural state. It's a fundamental part of being human. When the right conditions are present, imagination flourishes. It's the natural order of things, in the same way that land, left to its own devices, will revert to forest, provided it isn't mowed, sprayed, or grazed. This quote jumped out at me because 2 weeks ago here on Earth Day weekend, we had just been talking about the process of rewilding, where ecosystems come back to life, and also about rediscovering our own wildness. And when I read this, I wondered if imagination might be an aspect of our wild selves that we could rediscover. Anyway, Hopkins says, clearing away obstacles to imagination is similar to the way when you close off the street and children come outside, they naturally know what to do. No one has to teach them how to play. When you give the imagination space to breathe, we know what to do. And by we, I mean all of us. Sometimes we think it's only special people who have the gift of imagination. So let's clear away that idea also. While it's true that different personalities express their creativity or imagination in different ways, let's stop interpreting creative or imaginative so narrowly that it leaves most of us out. It does not mean skilled in the visual arts or able to invent new gadgets. It can mean those things, but it also means the ability to look at things as if they could be otherwise. We can all practice that. And in that ongoing practice, sometimes we may be the one to come up with a new idea. Or other times, we may be the one who says, never thought of that. That could work. That sounds worth the risk. How can I help? You could see that happening in this very community a couple times in the last few months, including just last week. There was a conversation happening about raffle tickets, and someone said, what if we sold them at First Friday downtown? And the idea could have died right there, but it didn't. Because there were others who said, never thought of that. That sounds fun. That could work. How can I help? I think it was a similar process here last February on that frigid weekend when warming centers opened up around town, including this church, because you looked at your building as if it could be otherwise. What if this became a warming center too? And enough people said, well, that sounds important. Let's do it. How can I help? Hopkins talks about imagination as innate to human beings, our birthright even. The Judeo-Christian story takes it one step further. In the book of Genesis, God is the first creator. Talk about imagination. Except instead of images, it's words. God speaks, and a new future comes into being. Now, when God makes human beings in the divine image, some say, part of that image is a reflection of the divine creativity. We might even say that according to that story, humans' ability to create and imagine and invent is what we have most in common with the divine. Which means the world is overflowing with imagination. It is not scarce or unusual. So then why don't we experience this overflow? Well, probably because of so many obstacles. Hopkins calls it tamping down the imagination. We learn that we're not allowed to imagine. Grow up, get serious, just get in line and do it the way it's supposed to be done. I found this interesting book for today. I didn't get a chance to read it all. It's called Purple Crayons, The Art of Drawing a Life. It was published just last fall, and it looks at the meanings of Harold and the Purple Crayon for adults. And the author reads Harold as a celebration of nonconformity. It was published in 1955, with fascism and World War II still in recent memory, and the fear of communism very present. So in contrast to those, Harold is an example of what Ellen Horn calls sacred originality. And so one of the things we can find in that story is the permission to imagine. Often the idea that we're not allowed to starts close to home. I remember this, maybe it was all this thinking about crayons, but I remembered this song I heard decades ago by a friend's bluegrass band called Salamander Crossing. You can still find this song online from their album Henry Street. The song is called Color Outside the Lines by Jeff Kelleher, and it starts like this. I was just a kid, I was barely 3, Mama gave a new Crayola to me, and a book with a flower and a petal on a vine told me to be careful not to color outside of the lines. Well, what's a line matter to a child of 3? I put the flower in the ocean and the petal on the tree, and a blackbird sitting on the telephone line. Since then, me and my mama never seen mind to mind. Imagination is often something we're expected to grow out of as a consequence of getting serious. It's similar to play in that way. If imagination emerges later, it's supposed to be in the form of innovation, for the sake of selling something, usually, but only for specially skilled people. So let's just name all of that false and clear that away. Imagination is our birthright. We have permission to use it at any age. So we get to imagine. And here's the last part. We have to imagine, not only for the sake of thriving, but maybe even surviving. Sometimes we're led to think that imagination and play are just nice little distractions from our real work. But if our real work includes healing relationships and the planet, then imagination is absolutely necessary. We absolutely must look at things as if they could be otherwise, because what is has become so unsustainable. Hopkins sums it up like this. It seems as though we are becoming less imaginative at the very time in history when we need to be at our most imaginative. I worry that the deeper we get into a crisis such as climate change, the harder it becomes to imagine a way out. So it is vital to our world that we practice imagination together as the first step toward a future in which all can thrive. Even if we're out of the habit, even if we've never been allowed, even if a blank piece of paper and crayon stresses us out because we're so used to having like a standard to which we hold ourselves in this kind of situation. Anybody feeling that this morning? Yeah, even if we can't remember where to start, we have to practice imagination for the sake of ourselves and each other and the planet. Fortunately, you also have this going for you here at UUSB. You have a community of multiple generations with kids, and I bet some adults, whose imaginations have not been tamped down. Kids in particular are wonderful teachers in imagination and play when we are willing to be reminded of those aspects of ourselves. And young people at the same time remind us how crucial it is to imagine a more sustainable future to pass on to them. Younger people call us to find our imagination, to go looking for it if we need to, and free it from all the obstacles in the way, to practice imagination ourselves and support it in others. The hymn that we're about to sing today offers a similar call. And if you want to find it now, I'm going to read it. It's number 319. I'll read it first, and then Jack will play it through, and then we'll sing verses 1, 2, and 4. But it's beautiful poetry, and so I wanted to focus on that before we're trying to put it together with the tune. So verses 1, 2, and 4 go like this. Ye earth-born children of a star, amid the depths of space, the cosmic wonder from afar within your mind's embrace. Look out with awe upon the art of countless living things, the counterpoint of part with part as nature's chorus sings. And then verse 4, seek deeper still within your souls and sense the wonder there, the ceaseless thrust to noble goals of life, more free and fair. What if it could be? Amen and blessed be. So we'll listen first and then sing number 319. I'm keeping an eye out for the children who are coming back in to sing the benediction with us in this intergenerational community, and then they have something they're going to send each of us home with today. Because practicing imagination here is just the beginning to practicing imagination out there. And our kids can help with that eventually. So we'll see if they're on their way. But I'll tell you what they're going to do while they're coming. So as we go forth from this place, the kids have a purple crayon for each of you. They're here reminding you and sharing with you and inviting you and asking you to imagine. And so they will be giving us all this tool with which to make the world, to change the world in a small way or a large way through our imaginations. So before they do that, we'll sing the benediction all together. So I suppose we could get ready to do that, but we won't start until the kids are here. But thank you for extinguishing the chalice as we await them. Oh, should we try this? So I hear that last week you made one big circle, and here they are. Here they are. Hey, we're ready to sing the benediction, and then after we sing, then the handing out will begin. But I just told everybody what you're going to do, so they're prepared. All right, so let's make a big circle, and so I don't know. We can probably just circle up as best we can where we are and include. Yeah. All right, this will work. This will work. Okay. Are everybody connected? Circle-ish. Community is messy, and so are our circles sometimes. Okay. Blessed are those who, what was that? Make do, make mistakes, and make community. All right, let us sing our benediction. Thank you, kids, for coming to hand out the purple crayons. Make sure you don't leave before you have one.
You were